Hey guys, someone requested that I explain the difference between lower end models and higher end models of knives within the same company. For example, today I'm going to be comparing two Spyderco knives, one a Spyderco Endure 4 and one a cheaper Bird knife, okay, by Spyderco. And then another case is Benchmade. I have a Benchmade Blue Class knife against a Benchmade Red Class knife. Now a lot of people, they're looking at the prices, they're getting into knives, they don't really know the difference, and they must ask themselves, I can get a Benchmade knife, okay, for 30 bucks in this case, the monochrome. I can get one for 30, or I can get this model. This model is roughly 60 bucks for a full-size Griptilian, depending on where you get it. So what makes this knife worth twice as much? I mean, they're both Benchmades. Shouldn't they have the same quality? Well, it's a good question. In the as far as the Spydercos go, you have a Spyderco knife, and then you have the Bird knife. Now these are made by Spyderco. They're a heck of a lot cheaper. What's the difference? Why? I mean, they're both really Spyderco made knives. What's the difference? And that's what this video is explaining. Hopefully, there's two real reasons why they're cheaper. Okay, two main reasons. A, these cheaper line knives are made overseas. Okay, when you make things overseas, you have lower wages. You have different, I guess, I don't want to say work ethic because, they work the same. But basically, production cost is way down. Like I said, you have lower wages. It's cheaper to produce things overseas. That's just a given. Now, a lot of people don't buy knives that are made overseas because they have, American pride, and that's great. I buy knives if they're good. I really don't care where they're made. As long as they're good knives, that's fine by me. But that's really why they're so cheap, is because they can make them cheaper. So A, they can make them cheaper, so you get them cheaper, and B, which is the other reason why they have lower end knives, is they use a little bit lower end steels, okay, and materials. First, let's talk about the Spydercos. So I have here the Endura 4. This just happens to be the white handle scales, but it's no different than any of the other Enduras, and besides that fact, it's a great quality knife. This has a VG10 stainless steel, which is an excellent performing steel, and overall it's a very, very good knife. It's a really nice design. Now, Spyderco, knowing that this is one of their staple knives, between the, I'd say the Endura and the Delica are probably their most sold, most common models, even though they have a heck of a lot of different models out there. Very common and very well sought after. However, you can't reach every corner of the market because even though this is extremely affordable, in my opinion, for what you're getting, there's still people who can't afford or don't want to spend, over 50 bucks for a knife. So, that's why they came out with the Bird line. This is the Cara in G10. Now, this is the more expensive version, coming in at about $26, $27, as opposed to the FRN version, which is $20. Okay, so you're looking at less than half, almost a quarter of the price. Well, it's less than a quarter of the price, but it's still less than half the price of the Endura. However, it's basically the same. You get the same overall feeling with it. Okay, the designs are very similar, size, the feel of it, the overall, design of the knife in general. It mimics the Endura in a lot of different ways. And if you watch Nut and Fancy's review on the Bird Cara, he does a direct comparison with an Endura. So excellent video. You should watch that too. Just see a lot of the differences there. But again, it's a cheaper version of this knife. Yes, the design's slightly different, but you kind of get, like I said, the overall feeling of the Endura with that knife. This is made overseas, so A, it's cheaper to make, and B, they use a little bit cheaper materials, hence the blade steel. This one is an 8CR13 MOV. Okay, these knives are made in China as opposed to made in the United States, and again, you have a little bit of a downgrade in the steel. So that's why they're cheaper. Let's talk about the Benchmade. I have a full-size Griptilian here. This has a 154 cm blade, and it's made in America. Excellent, excellent product, and definitely a value for the money. However, some people don't want to pay $50, $60 for the Griptilian. Maybe they just can't afford it. Maybe they don't want to spend that much on a knife they think they might lose. So you have the Red Class line. Now in this case, I would much prefer compare the Griptilian with a Benchmade Ambush, which is also a Red Class knife, mainly because they're more similar in design. They both have the axis lock and a synthetic handle. But, I don't have one, so I'll have to make do, and that is the Benchmade monochrome. So once again, this I believe it's marked Taiwan, so I believe this is made in Taiwan. It could be just a blade, but I would have to assume the whole knife is made there. So I know the red class Benchmades are made overseas. I just don't know if they're all made in Taiwan. However, A, you have it's made in another country, cheaper to make, and B, cheaper materials. As opposed to a 154 cm blade, in this knife we have an N690. Okay? So that's the two main differences. All four of these knives are going to be very good knives to use. Okay? The biggest difference is that both the Bird Caracara and the Benchmade Monochrome, they're going to need sharpening a little more often. Okay? They're not going to hold an edge as long. But I have to say, overall build quality, extremely close. Both Benchmade and Spyderco do it right by having good quality control. Even in their overseas facilities, wherever these are being made, they're making sure that, hey, you know, they're not cutting corners, and these do pass a certain, you know, overall quality check on them. Okay, they're not just passed along as crap. You know, they still, you know, especially the Benchmade Red Class, they still carry the Benchmade name. Spyderco, everyone knows that Spyderco owns the Bird line, so they still are under Spyderco's name, so they want to stand behind their name. So these are great knives, great user knives. Like I said, they're cheaper because they're not going to perform as good, and that's basically the steel. That's really what it comes down to. It's just the blade material. The designs themselves are actually excellent. Again, you have a different variety, different models will have different styles and designs made for different you know, functions. More specific to different cutting tasks. But again, overall, you know, I don't want to be repetitive here, but it's just because they're made overseas and because they use a little bit cheaper materials, that's why they're cheap. And you can't beat that. You can't beat a good bargain knife. As far as the overall build quality, like I said, they're very, very close. It's a little bit less when they're made overseas. I'll give you an example, the Bird Caracara. Again, not fair that I'm comparing a G10 and steel model with a FRN model because I really wish I had a Spyderco with the G10 to do a direct comparison. But I'll show you, for example, fit and finish here on this one, and I have my little jeweler's loop. If you look through here, you'll see that on this spacer, you see the gap on the top there with that spacer piece. It doesn't match up like perfectly. Obviously, very, very minute detail in this knife. It's not going to affect the performance of this knife. It's just, even though it is minute, I have to point that out. These are the very, very small things that make up the differences between, you know, a knife made overseas and Spyderco's knives made here in the United States. So minute details like that are going to make a difference to, I would say, the collector over the user. That little gap, will that affect the performance of this knife? No, probably not. I can say that if you use this in wet environments or, you know, in the winter, if you get a little bit of water in there, and of course it freezes, it will want to expand and kind of pull the knife apart. Highly doubtful, though. I would say for most people that's never going to be a problem, never going to be an issue. So really, you know, it is a very minute thing, and some people might be shaking their head going, well, you know, you can't really compare them that way. That's not fair because they are so cheap. And that's what it comes back to. You can't expect everything when you're at the price point of these knives. They are definite bargains. Hopefully this video is a little bit intriguing and makes you think about it a little bit more. And that's basically what it is. In the end, it comes back to you get what you pay for. You're getting a much cheaper product. Again, both of these knives being less than half the cost of their, you know, their big brothers from the higher end portion of the company. But definitely bargains, nonetheless. So I hope this video was informative and maybe give you some perspective on the differences between the lower end and higher end models within certain knife companies. But again, Spyderco and Benchmade, they both do it right. They still, even their cheapest, crappiest models are still really good knives, in my opinion, for the money. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.